Do you want to be a great Shadowdark player? Shadowdark has DNA similar to 5e and other modern games, but a fundamentally different philosophy of play because of its OSR roots and attitudes. There are three big mindset shifts related to your character, how you play, and what to do in a campaign, and we'll cover all of them today. Now, I get the opportunity to run games at conventions where I'm introducing the OSR style to 5e players and Pathfinder folks. And this is the video I'd want them, or any new folks sitting down to play for the first time, to see. Hi, I'm John. My channel is a place I like to talk about Shadowdark and old school D&D and help people become better referees, but not today. Today, I'm talking to the players. Let's learn how to play Shadowdark. And before you play, you need a character. So I think the first question is, how is making a Shadowdark character different from what you already know? You discover your character, you don't design it. And what's that mean? If you're building a 5e character, you're going to sit down and construct or build, in some cases laboriously. Your character can take hours. And in an OSR game like Shadowdark, you're going to sit down, you're going to roll your character randomly. The whole process is like 5 minutes. I like to think of it as, instead of constructing your character or building them, you meet them. You don't know who they're going to be as a person. You roll dice and like the universe helps you figure it out. So to show you how easy and painless and how the process works, let's roll a character right now and let's roll some dice. Let's drop everything into the character sheet. And let's go ahead and meet our character, Turpin, the half-orc priest. When I started rolling this character, I was thinking I wanted to make a priest, and I was thinking I wanted him to be a half-orc. And I had fingers crossed that he was going to be strong. It's like being a parent, like, be strong. And Turpin ended up with 11 strength. But this character is awesome if you take a look at him. Like, he has a 17 charisma. That's like an unusual roll. And as I started to plug in the names, numbers, and figures and everything, kind of a story started to come into my head about this half-orc who didn't spend time in the gym lifting weights like all the other half-orcs. So he's only got like an 11 strength, but maybe because he's had to navigate like difficult social issues and things like that, he's got this high charisma and is really good at negotiating with people and talking to them. Not the character I would have chosen or even expected, but 100% a fun character and someone interesting to play. Now, the one thing you do get to think about a little bit when making a character is the ancestry. If you think about priests, they wear heavy armor, they can use melee weapons, and over time they can improve their strength and wisdom. So they're really meant to be up there like frontline fighters, supporting the front line of your party and fighting a little bit. The ancestry can flavor that a little bit. If you're a dwarf, you're going to have a ton of hit points. You'll get to be in the front and maybe tank like the fighters. Elf leans you more into either missile fire or a more magical cleric because of the bonuses. I said cleric, I meant priest, Shadowdark. The elf locks you into maybe a more magical priest. Half-orc, I think, is really interesting. Fighters get bonuses to damage, but besides that, there's not a lot of characters that add to their melee damage. So having that ancestry bonus that gives you extra damage, I think is really interesting. A sneaky way to make a warrior priest. And humans are never the wrong answer in Shadowdark. That human ambition gives them an extra talent, which is really powerful. Encumbrance matters in Shadowdark, so when making up a character, your encumbrance will equal to your strength. Again, Turpin, alas, he only has 11 strength, so I've only got 11 gear slots. He's already almost full after making him. And just like the initial creation of your character, you're sort of meeting them for the first time. You're discovering this person instead of constructing them. The surprises don't end there. The way Shadowdark leveling works is that at levels 3, 5, 7, and 9, you get a chance to randomly roll a new talent for your character. I leveled Turpin up to level 3 just so we could see what that experience was. So Turpin finally gets to level 3. I'm like, here it is, buddy. Here's your chance to get some strength and be a much better frontline fighter. And he gets a +1 to spell casting. Random characters have an interesting way of throwing curveballs at you. The universe is trying to tell me Turpin the priest, he's not a basher. He wants to talk to people. He wants to negotiate. He wants to make friends. And he really wants to lean into his magic, which is not what I would have chosen, which makes this character super interesting to me. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, you think it's interesting, you want to be a better referee, player, or just Shadowdark enthusiast, please subscribe. Thank you. You won't miss my videos. You'll help my channel grow, and that will keep me on YouTube. The next question to ask, how is playing an OSR game different from what you already know? The answer is not on your character sheet. That is one of these tenets or pithy statements you'll hear a lot of OSR pundits throw out there. We're going to go through a practical example. I will say this, first of all, I've refereed a lot of 5th edition. I ran many campaigns after 5e came out. I was an Adventurers League referee for a year at a public table helping a local comic shop. I saw a lot of 5e characters. I saw a lot of the tops of people's heads. I saw their bald spots. Why? Because they're always down, like looking at their character sheets, flipping through their 2 or 3 page character sheets. And when you've got a character sheet like this, it's like 1 page and minimalistic. There's not that much to look at. You probably have it memorized. When you're playing a game like Shadowdark or an OSR game, the OSR is going to ask you to immerse yourself in the world and ask this question, like, not what does my character sheet say I can do, but if I was in this situation, how would I interact with the world in this moment? And because a picture, or in this case, an example, is worth 1,000 words. Here's a situation. Your party's exploring the lost city. You're traveling through a hallway. You're going east to west. I described that the passage goes 30 or 40 feet. You guys are in your marching order. You set out. When you get about halfway, I mentioned to the wizard, something happens to your torch. It flickers briefly and pulls to the south. And then you guys notice that the hallway keeps going west. It goes maybe 20 or 30 more feet, and then turns north. The mapper is very quickly scritch mapping it out. But OSR immersive play requires that the players are doing some active listening. And when they hear that clue that something happened to the torch, that's a telegraph to them that maybe there's something here. You'd want the wizard player, for instance, if they're holding the torch, say, hey, time out a second. I want to step back and see if that happens to the torch again. If I step back into that middle square, does something happen to the flame? I feel like maybe there's a draft or an air current. And in this way, the players are probably going to discover that there is, in fact, a draft or an air current. And if they follow it to that south wall, they find a gap in between 2 blocks, and that there's an actual space behind the wall, and air is flowing through from where they are into this hidden space. Next thing you know, they're going to ask for the thief perhaps to get up there and see if he can open it up, or if there's a secret catch or something. And in an old school game, that's how you would find a secret door. You wouldn't just call out, we make perception checks. The players have to actively listen and then interact with the environment. Does mean, of course, that the referee needs to know how to do these kind of tells or descriptions that encourage the right kind of searching. I have a whole video on this. I'll put a link to it near the end, because it is a skill for the referee to develop. But there's a player skill to develop as well around active listening and immersing yourself in the scene. In Shadowdark, the best class at interacting with the environment is the thief. In general, in Shadowdark, you do not roll skill checks for things that you're trained at and that you know what to do, and the thief is loaded with those kind of skills. Your referee will, though, make you roll skill checks when Maybe there's time pressure or there's chances of dire consequences. I really like the implementation of the thief in Shadowdark. So while while OSR gameplay doesn't prioritize mechanics, mechanics do come up, especially around combat. So what are those Shadowdark mechanics that you should pay attention to? Here's a list of cheat sheet topics I like to bring with me to conventions. For new players, I will go down these in order and talk through how they work in the game. In this case, I think you can get that information from your referee, but the ones that have asterisks, I do want to take a moment and talk about because I've got some advice or a tip. Starting with the torch timer. So Shadowdark uses this real-time torch. Your referee is going to track it. I think your players should keep one eye on the timer as well. The absolute worst thing that happens is you're in the middle of combat. Everybody's focused on what's happening at the table, and they lose track of their torch timer. And then the torch goes out in the middle of combat. No one can see. The party's blind. The monsters can see perfectly well. And it can be a near-death experience. So my piece of advice there, always have a spellcaster, maybe even two, a wizard and a priest. Either or both of them can have a light spell. It will save you in combat. It's a lot easier to have a caster cast light and get the party back in the game than people trying in the middle of combat trying to get their backpacks off, get down on their hands and knees and make a fire in the pitch black where they can't see anything and there's monsters all around beating on them. Combat in Shadowdark moves fast and furious around the table. We use clockwise initiative. You're never going to be feeling like this, like, oh, is it my turn? Finally. That's probably the biggest positive feedback I get at the end of most public Shadowdark games is, wow, I was really surprised how fast combat went and how much we got done in a 3 or 4 hour game session compared to what we usually play in our home games. Combat is deadlier in an OSR game. There probably is a higher chance of lethality. So you don't always want to fight. However, the referee will be using these things called reaction rolls and morale checks, especially for intelligent opponents. So as players, when you run into, I don't know, monsters and humanoids, don't assume that they're always hostile or that you always have to fight. Most of the time, there's probably going to be some kind of a role-playing opportunity there. So take advantage of it. The next one I have marked is luck tokens. Luck is a mechanic in Shadowdark, where the referee gives people luck tokens, and you can spend it as a temporary or consumable resource to re-roll a roll that just happened. So if you fail a critical roll, you can cash in your luck token to re-roll. You can also grant your luck token to other players. In the context of this new player advice, I always suggest that you're stingy and that you save 1 or 2 luck tokens across the party for those critical spells. As first level characters in your first dungeon, you'll run into something. Maybe it's a large group of orcs and it could be a deadly encounter. So you really need the wizard to succeed on that sleep spell. Or someone gets badly injured and they're at 0 hit points and their death timer is going. And you really need the priest to succeed on a cure wounds spell. So having a luck token in reserve can really mean the difference between life or death in those situations. Now, switching gears and thinking about campaign play, how is playing in an OSR game different than what you already know? I think that this way you're exploring a world instead of following a scripted story. If you play like 5e, if you like work with the big hardbacks, or if you've done Pathfinder adventure paths, you know that these published campaigns and many people use them, they will take you from like level 1 to 10 on this fantastic narrative arc, but they also cast the player characters in the role of protagonists in a story. And when you make the switch to an OSR style of play, it's more like you become a person in a living world or an open world you inhabit, the referee presents situations, and it's what the player characters decide and the consequences of those decisions that where the story comes from. It's not a pre-written story. It's all about the players making choices. Two really common structures in this style of play include the hex crawl, like wandering over this map here and going from place to place in the wilderness, or the dungeon. And the thing about both of these sites or locales is that they encourage exploration. The important mindset shift as players is that you have to be willing to make choices and establish goals for yourselves. Be willing to take charge. Again, let me give you a short example. Your group, they finished exploring, I don't know, like a dwarven mine. You've got some loot. You're heading back to your hometown where you're going to do some things in between adventures. You're following the river and stopping at one of the river villages. Everyone at the tavern's sad. There's no beer. There's no wine. There's river pirates, and the last shipment got intercepted by river pirates. The head of the Merchants Guild's really sad. As players, you have like a couple different choices there. You could completely ignore what seemed like an obvious plot hook because you've already got plans. We want to get back to our hometown. Or you could log it and take notes and put in your quest log and say, we'll come back to this later when we feel like it. Or change your mind and say, hey, we're here. These people have a problem. Let's figure out how we can deal with this pirate situation. And then if they make that third choice, how they do it in an OSR style game is so wide open. They could say, well, let's talk to the Merchants Guild and see if they'll offer us a reward. Or maybe there's a local lord and we can curry favor with the lord. Hey, we don't need any of those guys. We've got our own money. Let's buy a boat and go hunting pirates. The villagers in town talk about this sketchy village downriver, like a lawless place. That's got to be where the pirates are given shelter. And so the players are like, oh, we could dress in shabby clothes, go to the lawless village and infiltrate and figure out how to defeat the pirates from the inside. But the point is, it's completely wide open. The referee doesn't script it. The players decide. And so the mindset shift in an OSR or Shadowdark type campaign is this. The players need to actively listen for things like adventure hooks and opportunities to adventure. Take good notes about the world, including keeping a list of quest ideas. As a group, you need to be willing to make plans and set your own goals. And then the last one, and this is important, you have to let the referee know about it. Because in many cases, as referees, we're preparing for next week's game session based on the things that are decided in this week's game session. So letting your referee know what you want to do is important. The next topic, the next campaign factor for us to think about, it's how do you get experience points? How do you level up? In an old school game like Shadowdark, you get XP from treasure. First and foremost, that's where you're going to get the majority of your experience. And as a player, think about it this way, that you always have two different sets of goals, like explicit and then maybe something underlying or implicit. Your explicit goal is what you guys are deciding to do as a group that affects the world. In the case of our river pirates situation, you've gotten the Merchants Guild to hire you. They're going to give you a small fortune if you take care of the river pirates. So that's your explicit goal. But you always have this implicit goal in the game, which is to explore someplace, get treasure, and then get out alive. One of the mindset shifts for the OSR is don't forget the get treasure part, because that's how you're going to level up. That's how your character is going to become more powerful and more experienced. And Shadowdark does add one more component to this. It's called carousing, where in between adventures, in between major adventures, you return to town, you get something called downtime. You can use that downtime to throw a big party for yourself, some sword and sorcery type revelry, a little carpe diem. In fact, we could say that the motto isn't Explore, get treasure, get out alive. Explore, get treasure, get out alive, and get lit. There is another side to all these mindset shifts and sort of a secret lurking behind them. And it's this: referees love this kind of stuff. We want immersive games where our players are really engaged with the world and with the setting and the environment. We want fast games where combat moves and we're not bored to death because someone's agonizing over their 5-foot steps and opportunity attacks and bonus actions. We want games where the players are going to make meaningful decisions and execute their own plans against the world. It's like at that point, because the players determine where the focus is in the campaign setting. Like, I didn't plan on doing anything with the river pirates except mentioning that it's a problem. And they're the ones that have like taken this plot hook and they're going to run with it. When players do that, it's like they have become co-creators of the game world and the campaign setting. So chances are, if you're here thinking about starting Shadowdark, it's probably because there's a referee in your life who has said, hey, I would love to try this game. And the fact that they're thinking about it in the first place is this is the kind of stuff that excites them. At the end of the day, without referees, we don't have games, we don't have campaigns. And so I do think it's important that your referee has joy in running the game as much as you have joy playing it. Hey, so what have we learned? I've said that rolling up your character is an act of discovery. During play, you want to immerse yourself in the world. And during the campaign, you want to make your own plans and make your mark on the world. I think if you get those three things right as an OSR Shadowdark player, you'll be doing great. I do think Shadowdark is a great on-ramp for this kind of play. It's got these very familiar mechanics to modern players, but also then embraces this OSR philosophy, which is probably going to feel pretty different and new. It's kind of like an old school quality game, but with these modern quality of life improvements. I didn't really talk about it here, but there is a free quick start for Shadowdark. I'll put a link down that below, because if you're a curious player, you can go download that for free and get familiar with mechanics and how the game works. And then I mentioned for the referees out there, if you had missed it back in the day, my video on how to adjudicate secret doors and traps as an OSR style referee, I'll put a link up here. Okay. Thanks for being here, everyone. See you next time.